Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Philly Factor. I'm your host, Paul Perrello. A good friend of mine joins us on this edition of our program. Lorraine Ranalli is a well-known Philadelphia area broadcaster. She's a motivational speaker. She's an author. She's a mom. She does so many great things, and it's hard not to believe that anything that Lorraine has touched has turned out to be a success. And she's here to join us to talk about her new book, but I don't want to get into life after broadcasting, Lorraine, because we all have those stories to tell. But I really, first of all, want to compliment you and commend you on this newfound life after broadcasting, because, oftentimes people work at a long time in broadcasting and then they sort of try to figure out, what's next. You have managed to dive deep into this area of motivational speaking. You're a teacher. I should also mention, you've also taught public speaking, and I'm going on and on and on because I just can't think enough of
Oh,
to thank you, first of all, being here on the program and to discuss your work.
that is also very kind of you. I hope I can live up to your introduction there, Paul. Oddly enough, I don't think of life as after broadcasting. I still consider myself first and foremost a broadcaster, even though I'm not really on the air at all, except for situations like this. I still say, yeah, I'm a Philly radio personality because presidents get to do it until they die. They're still president, even if it was Jimmy Carter in 1979. And God bless him, he just turned 100. But that's my first love and always will be. And the transition really was kind of seamless, because we're all involved in communication. You do a lot as well, right? So you teach. I know you've done some writing. I don't know how much you've done as a freelancer, but we were in the news business, largely in the entertainment slash news business. I think, well, that we won't go down that rabbit hole either. But so we're writers, we're speakers. Um, what I noticed, and I was still full time in broadcasting when I started to do some ghostwriting and then started along this kind of speaker's journey, I needed to learn a new way of speaking because, in a radio booth with a microphone speaking to hundreds of thousands of people, you're really one on one.
Sure.
We're trained to do that. We're trained to make sure that we're speaking one on one because the listeners are largely listening alone in their car, whatnot. Then you go out and you speak in public and there's a live audience and it's nerve-wracking. And I know a lot of people in our industry felt that at different times in their careers. And I said, okay, I got to conquer this because I've got books coming out. I'm going to be doing this more. And so I went on a journey circa 2005, 6 to really try to hone my public speaking skills, transfer that broadcast training into, okay, now how do I do this in front of a live audience? And for a lot of people in our industry it was natural because they did both, but not all of us, right? And so that brought me to coaching. And I started as an adjunct and I developed a corporate training program. I did the whole Dale Carnegie thing. Love Dale Carnegie, can't speak highly enough about Dale Carnegie. And one thing that I noticed that prompted the book Impact was that in the college setting, look, I was a student. I don't know about your students, but they're going to try to avoid A, paying for as many textbooks as they can, and B, they're not going to read them. It's just life, they're going to read what's important. So I thought for public speaking, do we really need a textbook? What we need is like a little guidebook. So I developed the tips and I arranged them according to the chapter heads, which are parts of the public speaking process. And that was originally released in 2018, Impact. And I, like you said, just re-released it because much to my chagrin, I had to swallow a lot of pride and include information for online public speaking. And I can tell you that story when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole arena of public speaking has changed, and it seems like today that I think everybody will agree that if they're honest, everybody is nervous or gets nervous when they get up in front of a room and they have to speak. And I'm saying if they're honest with themselves, there's a little bit of nervousness, and you got to overcome that in order to deliver your message to your audience, whether it's a group of 10, whether it's a classroom of 30, or whether, and like in your case, you're speaking to dozens, if not hundreds of people. So I don't know if maybe post pandemic or during the pandemic and now post pandemic, people are we've all insulated or isolated ourselves. So the re-release of your book comes at a great time because we're now sort of getting back into that what was normal before the pandemic, but people are still having a difficult time communicating because you know why, Lorraine? At the end of the day, it's all about this. They
Hmm.
all want to send a text message. I often say to my students, when was the last time that you actually had a phone conversation with someone? People don't want to talk like we're talking here. They don't want to make a phone call. They would rather send a text message. I think
Sure.
you would agree, right?
Well, and I think there's a whole generation, if not two, that are just so accustomed to that. I find myself, you know, back in the day, you didn't think twice about you needed to contact somebody, you picked up the phone. I mean,
Sure.
that was the only way of communicating. Now I hesitate. I feel like I have to text the person first and ask permission to call them, you know? And I say to myself, what's the difference? If they don't want to pick up the phone, they won't pick it up. It'll go right to voicemail, but I still feel a little awkward. It's weird how the phone has trained us to be, like you said, kind of isolated and insulated. And and what's scary is, you know, I think one of the benefits to having some years behind us is that we know the difference. But
Sure.
you have generations of people who don't know the difference. So they kind of have to learn it like it's new. And for us, maybe we have to relearn these basic communication skills. And Paul, you mentioned nerves. And I think it's important. So everybody's nervous to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And nervousness isn't a bad thing. So one of the first things I would say to people, yeah, sure, you're nervous. We're gonna turn those butterflies. We're gonna embrace that and turn that into adrenaline. It's a matter of understanding how to finagle the nerves, how to make them work for you. Now, I've had students that were so scared that they literally, I had one student, I refer to her often, she ran out of the room crying. And I literally had to go out and kind of talk her off the ledge, not the literal ledge, but she didn't want to come back in. I said, no, 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 you have this. We went through everything, and then you have the opposite end of the spectrum. Some people that are so confident that they don't prepare and they don't realize until they get up there, and then they get shocked by this, like, oh no, where am I going with this? So there's all of that, but I think by and large, most people are a little bit reluctant and nervous.
Sure. I want to mention you can find out more information about Lorraine, her motivational series, her books, and we'll get into impact in just a moment here. You go to LorraineRanalli.com and we'll have that information up on the screen. You can find out more information about how you can even get in touch with her if you so desire. If you're a business organization, a community group, and you would like Lorraine to come in and speak to your organization, she can do that too. When and you probably get this question, if not once, twice, probably 10 times a day. It is so I have to deliver a speech. I have to do it at work. I'm a nervous wreck. I don't know where to begin. Where do I start? How do I come up with an idea? So, what do you recommend, Lorraine? If somebody's got to do it. You got to do it, but I don't know where to start.
Right, right. Well, the first place to start, and generally if it's for work, you have a topic given to you. But if you just have to give a presentation and you have a clean slate, the canvas is yours, um, the two criteria for choosing a topic, it has to be something that you about which you're an expert or something about which you're very passionate. Because if you have neither of those things, at least one of those two, generally, if you're an expert at something, you're passionate about it, but not always. If you're passionate about something, it's easy to become an expert because you have the desire to learn about it. But, if you had to tell me, Lorraine, I need you to deliver a speech on basketball, professional basketball, I'd be like, oh man, not only am I not an expert, but I'm not passionate about it. Sorry, guys. I know it's a bit, a lot of people are, but really, I would say choose somebody else that's better at that. Now ask me to speak about my Italian American heritage or even public speaking or business communication. I get all fired up. I'm excited. So that's the first place, choosing a topic. Then a lot, again, try to put the nerves aside and preparation. Start with preparing your presentation, your content. And don't think about how you're going to start it. Think about what the meat of the presentation is. I always tell people start from the inside out. And by inside, I mean you're generally, if you look at your presentation on a piece of paper, you have the beginning, the middle, the end, the open, the body, and the close. Start preparing from the body. What are the maybe three key points that you need to get across about that topic? And then identify what they are. And then start creating your outline. I tell people generally don't write your whole speech because people get caught up and nervous about writing and they get writer's block. Do an outline, and start again. What's the topic? What's the three main points? You don't want to make 10 points because people aren't going to remember them. Three is a great number. And then how are you going to support those key points? What evidence do you have? Do you have data? Do you have hypothetical stories, actual stories, some statistics? Maybe a catchy headline or a quote or a testimonial. All these things are evidence that are going to support your key points. And as you build this, you're going to get confident because you're like, you know what? Yeah, I have some good information here. I am an expert on this subject. I can talk about this.
Sure.
Then go back and develop your opening statement. You want to grab your audience's attention. You have what, 7 seconds to make an impression, they say. Make a great first impression. Start out with something strong, just like a headline. Or maybe it is a short story or, just some kind of a statistic or novel piece of information that's going to grab the audience's attention. Tell them, who you are and why you're the expert in a sentence or two, and then tell them what they're going to get out of your presentation. By the time I'm done, you're going to know this, this, and this. And then build your ending. And this is where people, I think, fall short very often. They think, okay, yeah, I got this. And they don't think about wrapping it up. And so they get up on stage and they meander and they're like, okay, I think that's it. No, 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 no. Start strong, end strong, So do the same thing you did in the beginning, but do it in reverse at the end. So quick summary, sentence or two. This is what I just told you. Maybe you take questions at that point, and then a final statement that leaves that lasting impression, and maybe it's just that one thing you want everybody to remember about your presentation. When you prepare that way, and then you have something to practice, you already are at least 50%, if not more, beyond conquering your nerves. Now you're still going to maybe be uncomfortable, a little nervous. So now you practice, but you have to get that outline done first. Then you can practice it. You can visualize delivering it, and then address anything that's negative that comes into your mind, and just kind of stamp it out with a positive alternative. I call it the negative chatterbox. It gets us most of the times rattled up. You want to overcome that by, not focusing on what could go wrong, but everything that's going to go right. And that's basically how you do it. But it does take preparation, and practice.
Yeah. I want to mention the name of Lorraine's newest book, Impact: Deliver Effective, Meaningful, and Memorable Presentations. And it is available online at your website, Lorraine.
Through my website, through Amazon, and I think Barnes and Nobles too.
Okay.
I have to check on
Um,
that. It has been, yes.
the one thing that I often tell students when they're in a public speaking class is know your audience, and you sort of alluded to this at the beginning here, but know your audience. And I think a key part of that is know how to read the room, because so many times, and we've all been in situations where we've gone into a seminar, we've gone into a speech, we've gone into a presentation, and the person who's delivering this speech or presentation thinks they know what they're doing, but they miss the key element of um, who's in the room, who are they talking to. They sort of have a prepared script, and they just go in and they're going to deliver that, but they don't know their audience, and that is, I think that's such a vital point that is overlooked oftentimes when presentations are made, is that people really don't know how to read the room. I mean, if they tell a joke and the joke falls flat, and then they come back and try to tell a second joke and that falls flat, it's like you gotta, and this is when you really, I think we as broadcasters, we think on our feet, you gotta react instantaneously. And I think when you're doing a presentation or a speech, if something's not clicking with the audience, then you got to regroup immediately and figure out what you're going to do next.
Right, right. And study comedians. They're expert at it, right?
Yeah.
But don't try to be one if it doesn't come natural to you. And I think, yeah, Paul, that is just so important. Another thing you need to do during your preparation is find out as much as you can about the audience, so you're gearing every part of it toward them.
Mhm.
Another, a Dale Carnegieism, and I love it, is everybody's listening to the same radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And think about your, as a way of practice, I would tell anybody, think about your daily interactions, even with your family and friends. We persuade more times than we even realize. We try to. In just take one day out of your week and pay attention to how many times you're trying to persuade somebody to do something. Um, and why I bring this up is that because when we're delivering a presentation, whether we're trying to inform people or motivate people or persuade people, we're always trying to sell ourselves. So you need to kind of get good at that, but you can't push yourself or your topic like somebody standing at the perfume counter at a department store ready to just spray whoever's walking by. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
You need to find out what are they interested in, and that's what good salespeople do. They listen. Where can I fulfill the need? So if you can, if you're invited to speak somewhere, find out from the organizer who's going to be there. Tell me the makeup of what's the demographics, why are they there? What do they expect to get out of this? And then you start forming your presentation. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have the liberty to get that information, you get there first and greet as many people as possible as they enter the room and build that rapport with them. But Lorraine, at that point, I've already prepared and practiced my presentation. You should have, yes, but now at least you know how to maybe finesse the delivery so that you're gearing it toward the audience. But most times, more than not, you'll be able to get that information at a time. But yeah, Paul, you're right. It's just so important to speak to the audience.
We oftentimes say, prepare and practice, and people will say, well, I've read my speech 30 times. I'm ready for this. But maybe they read the speech 30 times, but did they read the speech out loud and hear what it sounds like? I mean, because, you know, hearing it in your head and then hearing it in a room, be it
Mhm.
empty, are two different things. So you could practice that speech on paper numerous times, but the actual delivery, when you open your mouth and you start putting, emotion and feeling into the words that you're speaking are two different things altogether.
And in our business, one of the most grueling things to do is to do an air check, right? And so for
Yeah.
those who aren't aware, an air check is when you get off the air, TV or radio, and you go back and you look or listen to yourself, and you just like, oh, I hate this, hate it doing air checks. Usually your program director will pull you in after a shift and say, okay, let's go over an air check. What did you do well? Where did you screw up? And you almost have to do that with yourself. And you can, because we all have phones. So all you
Right.
need to do is set it up somewhere, record yourself, or just record yourself for 5 minutes so you can see how you're delivering, right?
Mhm.
And you're so right, Paul, when you say those words out loud, and then you add into that your body language, your facial expressions, how is this going to come across? Try to, as grueling a process as it is, if you want to perfect what you're doing, this is the way to do it. And, I call it deliberate practice. And, any athletes will know what deliberate practice is. It's taking yourself outside of your comfort zone and just focusing on every little part of your craft. So focus on that, delivering the body and how you're transitioning from one point to the next, and focus on how you're starting off and what are you doing with your body as you're doing that? All of those things are so important.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I think it's important for our audience to hear from you. Um, and I know the laundry list is probably very long or it could be very short, depending. But there have been probably presentations or speeches that you've given that went extremely well, and then on the flip side of that, there have probably been speeches or presentations that you made that probably came up a little flat. So can you give us
Totally
an
flat bombed. Yes.
I'm trying to be nice here, but you know where I'm going with this. But so give us an idea of one instance where you nailed it. It was great. The audience got it. You felt it. And then on the backside of that, a presentation that maybe you made that you sit back and you say, "Gee, I could have done this differently, or I didn't connect where I thought I would have connected." So I'm
Wow,
asking.
it's so funny. You ask for the good, and I only remember the bad, but there were a few good. And I'll tell you, the bulk of my speaking career was around Gravy Wars. When I released Gravy Wars in 2009, I can't believe it's 15 years ago. I was asked to speak at so many Italian American organizations, and one of my best presentations, it was just rip roaring funny. Several times, and my kids would cringe, but several times people would come up and say, "You should do stand up." I told my kids that one day, and they were like, "Oh, heck no, please, mom, no." Just because it's easy when it's a subject you're so comfortable with, and it's yourself and your self-deprecating humor, and I love to do that to a
Sure.
fault sometimes. But there was one in particular at a church in South Philadelphia, and I can't remember which one, but it was really fun, and I literally had the chance to be in the audience and walk around, and I was throwing tchotchkes around, and they were just cracking up and had a good time, but I got the point across. Um, and you know what? I can name so many times where there were mess ups, but one in particular that I don't talk about often, and it just comes to mind because it has to do with Gravy Wars as well. I was honored at the oh gosh, Italian American organization. Now I can't remember the name of it, but it was a political action committee, the Italian Political Action Committee. And I prepared a very serious speech because this was a group of very well-to-do, very politically connected. Everybody in there got a copy of the book. And I went in thinking I had to do this serious speech about, and it was a short one. It was just a short speech. And I focused on my grandfather's immigration and tried to connect that with, just the world of politics or whatnot. And it bombed. You know why it bombed? I didn't smile. I didn't have fun. I didn't do what I do best. I should have just went in there and realized that it doesn't matter, that these people are all, influential money people in the Italian community. They would have had as much fun talking about the slang and, the wooden spoon and all the jokes that I would throw into my regular presentation and still make the same points. But so that's one of many examples of where I could have done better.
Sure. We have about 5 minutes left of the program, and we could go on and talk for another, 45 minutes. But
Mi
um,
scusi,
yeah,
chiacchierone.
when so if a person is looking um, to sort of break out of their shyness or their inability to deliver a speech, or that they know that maybe it's a career choice or a career decision that I know I have to take this to the next level. I need to break out of my comfort zone. That's the term I'm looking for. I mean, what would you recommend? I mean, because we all get to that plateau, we get to that level, and we're like, I want to do this. I want to get here. But in order to get there, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means I need to be a little more outgoing. I need to, stand up at at an office gathering and let people know, who I am and that I am someone that, wants to be heard. And maybe that part you parlay that into a speech in front of a business person's group or whatever. So, what could you tell that person who is a little reluctant to take that step but needs to take that step?
Well, when you do speak in public, when you have the floor, whether it's the boardroom or a major, venue, you're in a position of power. So I would say, first of all, don't take advantage of that power. Be scrupulous, have uh, um, integrity. Um, but if you really want it, you're going to do it. And the way to do it is incremental. Start small. So speak up at the PTA. If you have kids and get involved in the school, do it with a smile on your face. Believe it or not, I was a shy kid. I have an introvert's personality, but I love getting on stage. As nervous as I get, I love it more than I love just being in a crowd. I get a little bit nervous, right? But so what I did was I was a teenager when I recognized I wanted a career in radio, and everybody said, "Ah, you'll never make it. You're too shy." I started reading at mass. I worked at Roy Rogers because at the time Roy Rogers had a microphone and you had to call the order in so that the cooks could hear you through a microphone. Um, then as I got into my career, I did small speaking engagements, local community groups, Rotary Club, whatever, the school. So I would say get out there and do it. The only way you're going to get more comfortable and get better is to keep doing it. And so whatever opportunity presents itself, fake it till you make it. You
Mm.
know, read my book for some tips. There's tons of information online. I would look into a Dale Carnegie course. It's a huge confidence builder. It's wonderful. And I have no connection with them. I get no kickbacks. I just love the program. I think it's solid. That's what I would recommend.
Well, this has been a fascinating half hour and a great time to catch up with you and
Thank
learn
you.
so much from you. And if you want more information about Lorraine, about all the work that she's doing, you can go to her website, which is lorraineranalli.com. You can also get not only the book that we're talking about today, Impact, but Gravy Wars is still out there. It's still, it's a great book. And whether you're Italian or you married into an Italian family or you're just looking for a great read, Gravy Wars is indeed
Thank
one of the best books that I've come across. And not only saying that because of Lorraine, but also because of my Italian heritage. She hit it on the head so many ways and times. She has hit it on the head with Gravy Wars. Lorraine,
Oh, it's
thank you
fun.
so much for being with us.
Paul, thank you so much for having me. So great to see you.
Same here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, lorraineranalli.com. Get more information there. Until the next time, I want to thank you for being with us on this edition of the Philly Factor, and we'll catch you the next time around.